The energy of the year 2025 is the energy of number 9. When you put together these numbers, this means the subtle body. This means the intimate, subtle connection. The subtle body is the container of our soul. And the soul, without that subtle body that contains it, will otherwise merge and become one with everything, losing the sense of individuality. This container, nevertheless, is not like a thin layer. It's actually the space. The subtle body is the ether, is the space that contains the soul. And that is why we are spiritually connected, because the space is connecting us. That connection that we develop is a very subtle type that enables us to have amazing ability to be with others, read them, and be in a subtle bond with different people. So this year, number 9, subtle body, is a year where you can re-establish healthy bonds, deep bonds with yourself, with others. When you feel disconnected, it's not because there's lack of mental connection or lack of physical connection. It's mostly because there's an intimate, subtle connection that is not there. That's the reason why we don't feel connected. Or you can see or feel closely connected to someone that is not in the same room, or maybe even in the same country. And the reason why we feel this way is because we have a subtle body. Our soul is contained by a subtle structure, which is the space that makes us connected with everything. And when we develop this subtle body further, we can heal so many of our connections that even go beyond time and space. The subtle body, when developed, allows you to connect to your ancestors, because they, as souls, have subtle bodies, and we are, through that subtle space, connected to them. This is very similar also to the understanding of spiritual lineages and our ancestors, bloodline ancestors. We are part of that background ancestors through our subtle body. How to develop our subtle body? And that is by paying attention to the internal subtle processes of our thoughts and also our emotions. Like, for instance, when an emotion changes from, let's say, fear to hope, there's a transition, and there's a very subtle moment internal where you can feel that movement from fear to hope. That transition is subtle. If you pay attention, you develop that sharpness of the subtle body. Also, you develop the subtle body when you meditate, because as you meditate, first you deal with thoughts, or ordinary thoughts, and memories, concrete memories. When you begin to meditate, you become more subtle, and then you become aware of thoughts that are deeper, and emotions and memories that are more hidden and more subtle in the structure of your mind. Subtle body also allows you to read people well. So for developing subtle body, you need to pay attention to people, how they speak, how they move, their voice, their gestures, and also initially how you do all that. So that perception, subtle perception of myself, of my inner mind, of my soul, that subtle perception of others, perception of their minds, their words, their energies, all that subtle perception basically creates connection. The perception of the subtlety of God in our lives, in our existences, when we perceive that, we feel connected to God. Subtle body, as we go through the year, little by little, if we pay attention, will become stronger. And those things that look like mysteries will no longer be mysteries, because we will perceive them in their subtle structure or essence. Our subtle body is what remains with us after death, actually. All the rest of our dimensions, all the rest of our bodies will dissolve except our soul and the subtle body that contains it. So the journey of the soul can continue. So there are imprints in our space, subtle body. It's the same thing. There are imprints that we collect in each life. And then when we go to another life, we connect to ourselves, our subtlety, and we connect to that wisdom that comes from earlier, from the experience of our soul earlier. Our subtle body is really powerful. It's really, really powerful. When you have a subtle body develop, you can, somehow affect reality from that level. The subtle body is the essential aspect that is at work when you do healing, for example, the kind of healing that is, that I do, for example, and most of the healing is because of the subtle body's refinement to connect and move energies and transform things from that deeper subtle aspect. The subtle body gives a person the experience of either mastery or mystery. Mastery, because you know the subtle essence of things if you have the subtle body active. And mystery, because you don't know at all what's going on in life if you don't know the subtle essence of things. You're like, oh, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't know why this is happening. Subtle body gives you the mastery to know. So I'm just telling you this because the year is beginning and it's an opportunity to set the intention correctly so we flow with the energy of the year.